Hey everyone, welcome back to the Insights podcast by the UNSW Law Society. In our second episode for the year, we're joined by our lovely co-presidents, Lihara and Bhavik, to chat to them about their roles within LawSoc and to share experiences within law so far.
Before we start, we'd like to acknowledge the Gadigal people, the traditional custodians of the land on which this podcast is recorded, and pay our respects to their elders past, present, and emerging. Okay, guys, so to kick off, we've got some really serious questions that we need to ask you. So, first things first. Bhavik, who do you think would win in a fight between Lihara and a chicken?
Chicken. 100%. That's easy.
Are you?
Chicken. Yeah. No, she's scared of like everything.
I am scared of everything, but no. I'd win.
Chicken.
Okay. It's the Hunger Games in the law building. Who are you picking from CAB to form an alliance with? Lihara, you go first.
Joseph.
Why?
Because he just knows everything. Like you can trust him.
That's fair.
Then probably Sonia, because you can also trust her with everything.
So who do you think will be the first to die?
Or either Addie or Tatvika.
Addie.
Yeah. Addie.
Easy.
That is a violation.
No.
It's like it's
he
it's
will.
genuine
Yeah.
answer.
Like it's unfortunately the truth.
Okay, and Bhavik, who are you picking to form an alliance with?
Joseph. Like he's too good. He's just like a
He
gun
will
at
have
every
like
single thing.
he'd have a tactic, like a plan of where to hide.
Joseph will come up with things and ideas in his head without us even like having blinked an eye. It's crazy. He's too good at everything.
That's fair enough. Okay, so he wins the Hunger Games. Okay, Bhavik, how many kids do you want?
Ooh, I think 2 is a good balance. I grew up as an only child, and
Yeah, I can
think-
tell. Sorry. I did like to say.
so I think that sort of companionship would be really nice to have. But more than 2 would just become a bit of a pain to handle, possibly. But I think, yeah, it really depends.
Imagine 2 Barbies.
Crazy, right?
calm.
The world would be blessed.
Okay, so now we're going to get into the actual questions, into the nitty gritty. So you've obviously known each other for a while now. You're both in your 4th year of law and co-presidents of LawSoc. So let's go back to first year for a second. What are your earliest memories of each other? Lihara, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. So my first memory of Bhavik was actually at our first year law camp. So ours was held in June because of COVID, and it was like the only event that ran that year. But we had the very famous food challenge, and we both happened to be really good at eating funky food. So we ended up being in the top 5, and then I got kicked out of that round, and then Bhavik was in the final 3. And then my first very vivid memory of him was him eating an onion like an apple and then throwing it up in the bathroom.
Not in the bathroom. it was in the
like,
bin
in
right
the bin.
outside the gym.
Yeah, and then he went to the bathroom and he smelled like onion the rest of the night.
That's disgusting. And you looked at him and you were like, you're going to be my co-president.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Apparently so.
Do you feel like Food Challenge set you up with the skills that you both have now to be co-pres of LawSoc?
100%. I wouldn't be here without that food challenge, you know?
Same, actually.
Yeah. Okay, I rate that. And Bhavik, I'm assuming the same memory goes for you, or how was your version of
Yeah,
events?
no, pretty similar, I think. Food challenge for sure. I think I was just really traumatized from the food challenge to sort of come out of it with any vivid memory of anything else except me just having a great experience. But then I know for a fact that after camp, both Lihara and I ran into each other. Sort of, she was exiting class and I was entering like the law building, and we'd always just see each other and just say hi, and that was sort of the extent of it. And then we had a commerce subject together. I think it was Com 1170 or something like that, and then we got put in groups together, and sort of the rest is history, I suppose.
Good summer.
Very cute.
Amazing. Okay, so thinking back to your early memories during uni, what was the reason you both decided to join LawSoc, and what was the first thing you remember about it? For example, a person or event. Let's go, Bhavik.
Yeah, I think for me, joining Law Society was a goal of mine probably before I even joined university. I was one of those really excited and keen students straight out of high school, wanting to do everything possible on the face of this earth at uni. And I think joining LawSoc was probably the biggest of them, because I naturally had seen everything that they'd done my research. I was like, I'm definitely going to do law review, going to join LawSoc and everything else as well. And I think what really solidified it for me was attending the first year graduate welcome. And that year, this was back in 2021 when Sanjay Alpakam was president, one of the co-presidents of Law Society, and he was on the speaker panel. And one of the things that he really emphasized on and touched upon was the idea that him as a student who'd grown out of essentially a lower socioeconomic background, growing up in Western Sydney, and then sort of coming to a university, and then that entire persona changing, having experienced everything that law school has to offer and Law Society has to offer. I think that really solidified joining Law Society for me. So I think seeing him up there on that panel really inspired me from day .1, and I suppose that's one of the big reasons I'd say I'm here now. So yeah.
That's awesome.
Oh, for me, it wasn't as early, but mine still goes back to camp. So I actually came into first year being probably one of the quietest, least confident people out there. So yeah, I was very timid. I didn't really know what I was doing. I only had 2 people from my school come to UNSW, so I genuinely knew nobody and went into camp very fresh. And basically I got paired up in a group with genuinely one of the best people who happened, like it was my camp leader. And she's now to date one of my closest friends, but essentially she taught me to be myself and step out of my comfort zone. So to this date, I'm so grateful for her, and yeah, I'm grateful for her friendship, but she really pushed me out of my comfort zone. And from that camp, I knew that I wanted to be surrounded with more people like that as well. And that's what got me into LawSoc.
That's really awesome. Give her a shout out.
Oh, Chloe Wayne.
That's so cute. Love that. Okay. So obviously you've worked your way up in the ranks to get to where you guys are now. Co-pres doesn't happen overnight, as I'm sure. So what other positions have you held within LawSoc, whether that was as a director or as vice president? Tell us about that.
Yeah, sure. So my first position in LawSoc was as socials director in 2022. This is probably to date one of my favorite positions. It is very fun. I think it allowed me to, again, step out of my comfort zone, which was something that from camp to that point continued to be built upon. But yeah, that position allowed me to meet a lot more new people and really step out of my comfort zone. So I feel like I'm a very big people person, and I thrive on making other people happy and making sure that they have a good time and a good experience. So that role was very much the very first step in doing that. Then I went into vice president activities last year in 2023. This was a very large role, very fun. I, again, got to see different aspects of student life and really got to contribute to seeing students grow holistically. So I think that position really allows you to build a person, just like I was built. I built myself from first year. So, for example, the Law Plus peer mentoring program, I saw my mentees go from being the quietest people to being the most confident people that are already now in LawSoc as well. So very much love that position. And then from that, I think I just grew my love for LawSoc and the people in it, which is why I'm now president.
Yeah, so I think Lihara and I, although I'd say honestly we've had quite similar journeys in the sense that we've been part of Law Society and part of the Law Society exec both since first year, but the sort of aspects that both of us have explored of the society have been quite polar opposites, I'd say. So Lihara was activities, meanwhile I was sort of on the other end, being the social justice director in my first year. So what that role essentially involved, so part of the social justice portfolio was essentially creating a lot of events and assisting a lot of the other directors. So whether that be the ethnocultural officer, the women's officer, and a lot of these other key role-based positions in essentially creating an environment for law students to feel really comfortable in their own body, as well as empower them to explore career opportunities, but also ways in which they could really use their law degree, but also just use their own willpower and self to create an impact out in the community. So I think for me, that was the reason why I joined law school in the first place, to be able to essentially effectuate some sort of impact out in society. And I think being able to step into that role essentially off the get-go in my first year was a really incredible experience. I was under the leadership of Tharani, who, big shout out, because I think, again, wouldn't be here without her. And I was sort of, in my next year, fortunate enough to take my experience and follow her footsteps and take on the role of the Vice President for Social Justice. And I think one of the really big goals that I carried myself into that year last year was seeing students genuinely feel like they can have an impact, and that the opportunities that we are able to provide for them allows them to have an impact, not just in law school, but take that skill and take it outside and really create a difference in the world. And I think some of the events that we were able to run, such as our Human Rights Conference, for example, it was one of our flagship events, and it just ran incredibly. And the amount of people that we were able to invite and talk to, it really gives you a lot of perspective in terms of how much you can do within this degree, which may be so sort of far-fetched to people who are just starting off. Like as a year 12 student, when I stepped into law, I had no idea really what I was stepping into, but being in law societies, I think, been the main avenue for me to be able to explore that. Yeah, I think highlights in terms of my directorship role was probably an event that I hosted with the co-president of 2022. Shout out Christina. I'm sure she's watching. And I was able to host an event with her where we invited an incredible speaker, Lovemore Endow, who essentially fought immense amounts of racism and torture as a Zimbabwean refugee, and then came over to Australia, formed his own law practice about the same time, won World Boxing Championships. And I think being able to host that event was just a real defining moment, I suppose, in my trajectory at Law Society, but also at law school. And then last year, I suppose, just being able to lead that team to be able to effectuate similar events was just an incredible experience. So, yeah.
Yeah, that sounds amazing, Bhavik. So, given both of your experience, right, what advice would you give to younger students who might hope to land a position as director, VP, or even co-pres one day?
I'd say just go for it. I think one of the big things that I knew as a student back in my first year, definitely knowing that I wanted to go into LawSoc, was the fact that, yes, it mattered sort of where in the society I needed to go and sort of wanted to go, but not limiting myself to that. So I, for example, applied to a few different portfolios, and then social justice was the one sort of that I ended up being in. But I think just really going for it and spreading your wings as far wide as possible is probably a really good piece of advice. And I think a lot of people feel intimidated to actually step into those shoes. But if you can just convince yourself that this position in some way or another will create and leave a better impact in your life than the one that you're leading right now, you'll thrive at whatever you do. And I'd say the second piece of it would be, don't just limit yourself to the society. Explore every other opportunity that the university has to offer. For me, that ended up being Yellow Shirts. So the Yellow Shirts volunteering program that ARC runs, I'd say it was a really huge part of my own personal development in just getting out there and being someone who went from, being a bit scared, being one of those law students who just sort of came to uni just to study, to being someone who would just be able to strike up a conversation with anyone and really expand your horizons, and don't limit yourself. Never limit yourself.
I just wanted to ask on that, there's obviously a lot of students who come into law school that maybe their first years, maybe their third or fourth years, I don't know, and a lot of people might struggle with making friends when they come to uni. How would you say you went about that within your own experiences, or what would you recommend?
Okay, I think I'd say I was incredibly fortunate from my first day that I stepped onto campus. I stepped onto campus as a first year at OE, by the way, having absolutely no friends, very similar to Lihara, having no friends coming to this university. All of my friends from high school went to different schools. So I was just here essentially the way I think it's a very much a mindset and mentality thing, in the sense if you're approaching university life as something that you want to just go to classes, come back home, that experience will never be as holistic as you would want it to end up being after your 5 years or 5 or 6 years after you finish law school. To change that mindset, it's a really deliberate shift that you feel like you have to make to essentially be like, hey, okay, I'm here now. I'm not going anywhere for the next 6 years. So the best way for me to be able to make those friends is just to put myself out there in every possible way. Whether that be just going over to your friend or sort of going over to a stranger in your law class being like, hey, like, you know, did he get that? Like, did he understand that case at all? And striking up a conversation from there, or just walking out with someone being like, hey, would you like to go for a coffee? Because so many people are just intimidated to do that. But you realize that when you actually ask that question, more likely than not, the answer is going to be yes. So seek that answer, seek that yes that you're looking for. And that's, I think, one of the best ways to just form that connection.
Okay, so my biggest advice would be to follow your interests and what you feel you can do to make a difference. So for me, I knew that being a skills director wasn't something that I knew I could make a bigger difference with. And I think my journey with LawSoc was one of really large personal growth. So I wanted to be in a position and space where I could help make that difference for someone else. So for me, that route was through activities. So unlike Bhavik, I didn't actually apply for different portfolios. I went straight to activities and I was very specific with what I wanted. I was very interested in that social space, meeting new people, being able to bring them out of their shells, and being able to contribute to their personal journey. And I think all three of the positions to date, including president that I've held, have been able to make that experience for someone. So my biggest piece of advice is follow your gut, follow what you think is good for you, and run with it.
Awesome. And then in terms of people coming to uni and, as Bhavik was saying, being just intimidated or unsure of how to make friends, how did you personally go about that?
Yeah, I think it's super important to remember that every single student is in university for the first time as well. Every single person is in the same shoes as you. Everyone is worried about making friends. Everyone's like, am I going to get this first class? Am I wearing the right thing to my first class? Do I have everything? So everyone's very much in the same mindset. And I think people often forget to realize that. So like what Bhavik was saying, if you ask to go for coffee, someone will most likely say yes. It's very unlikely that they will say no. So I think it's super important to first acknowledge that everyone's feeling the same as you. And then I do agree that you need to find it within you to have a bit of confidence to come out of your comfort zone and try your best to make those friendships, whether it be through coming into a class and being like, hey, do you want to work on this later? Or maybe even getting someone's social media. And yeah, making those connections in class. And even though you might start meeting new people and might not start to hang out with those same people from that first class, for the rest of your university time, it's very likely that they'll help you grow the confidence to meet new people. I also would say my second piece of advice would be to sign up for anything that you see. So LawSoc offers so many different opportunities for you to meet new people. So for first years, whether that be that Law Plus program, or even for JD students, the JD mentoring program, even the international one, there is always an avenue to meet new people and make new friends and change your university experience. So look out for those and give everything a go, even though you're scared. Find someone in your class or just apply yourself, because in the end, nothing bad's going to happen out of it. You'll just make a friend.
Yeah, that sounds great. So some more advice. What advice would you give to students juggling extracurricular activities and uni at the same time? So what are your top tips for time management?
My top tips, definitely have a Google Calendar. I think having a calendar has been very pivotal to my organization. So yeah, blocking out those times where you were focusing on uni or focusing on, for me, it would be LawSoc as well. And also blocking in time for you and your family and the things you like to do. People often neglect themselves and the people around them. So I think it's super important that whilst university can be very challenging and you may face times where you are struggling to juggle things. I think it's super important that you also prioritize you and your health and making sure that you can be the best person you can be. So whether that be through doing your hobbies, keeping up with making sure you're eating all your meals, keeping up with work, anything you do, make sure you look after yourself first. Then also make that time for family and close friends. For example, make sure that I am home at least once a week for dinner with my family. So I book out that slot so they know I will always be home when I'm in busy periods.
Yeah, I'd say there's 2 tips from my end. I'd say the first one would be to always work backwards. So think about every single thing that you have to do, whether that be studying for an assignment, doing your readings, doing extracurricular work that your director or VP has set for you, or anything else as well outside of that, whether that be, for example, for me, it's sometimes, knowing that I have to make dinner on certain nights at home, or knowing that, I have to get ready at a certain time. Knowing that essentially I have to do a certain thing by a certain time and really ingraining that in my head and then working backwards from that to say, okay, I need to start at this point and leave myself enough leeway to be able to complete a certain task. And then on top of that, manage the actual completion of that deadline or whatever it is, allows me to essentially try and keep on track and on top of all the stuff that I do as best as possible. It's been a real hard shift for me to actually be able to do that. I'd say probably from the start, and there's still some of this that's present in terms of the way I study or the way I work, that's still present to date. In first year, for example, I'd leave every single assignment to the last minute. And even though some of that probably hasn't changed and it's hard to take it out of you, the more you're able to sort of ingrain in your head that at least I know I have to finish X task by X date, you can still cram something and yet get it done before the deadline's actually due. So that's one thing that I'd say has been a real mentality shift in my head, which has sort of helped me keep on top of everything. And I think LawSoc essentially added a big aspect of that on top of it. But knowing that I can work around everything else just gives me confidence that I can work around anything else that I sort of want to add on. And like Lihara said, you should really be throwing yourself into everything possible and sort of sign up for everything possible. But also make sure you're keeping track of everything that you're doing, and you don't want things to be sort of overloading you, or you just to be signing up for things that you don't actually think will add value to your life in some ways. I think that's probably my second tip. When you're signing up for things and extracurriculars on top of your studies, really think what value they'd be able to add to you. But at the same time, don't just overload yourself for the sake of overloading yourself, because you'll see so many law students do the same around you, but it's not necessary that you just have to follow their footpaths, because every law student has a different life story. Everyone has different circumstances. And I think it's really easy to compare yourself to another person. But at the end of the day, you need to remember you're living your own life. You're sort of walking your own path, and you're the only one who's sort of in control to be able to define it. So make sure that what you're doing is something that you really feel passionate about and are willing to step forward and take with full stead. And lastly, I'd say this is a really cool trick that I learned pretty recently. It's called the 2-minute rule. So what the 2-minute rule essentially says is that, let's say you have 5 to 10 deadlines that are sort of coming, and they're varying in terms of their difficulty and sort of how much time they're going to take. If you're able to think about what are the tasks that you can just get done there and there, for example, like in a LawSoc context, would that be sending out an email, right? It's not going to take you more than 5 minutes to be able to do that, unless it's obviously circumstances. But think about if that can be a task that you can mentally check off and that's done now, and it's going to essentially reduce the sort of mental burden that you're going to have in your mind to be like, hey, I have this like XYZ due, that's going to benefit you in the long run. So think about what things need to take priority, prioritize those first, and make that list a priority as a starting point, so to be able to sort of really ground yourself again, and then go from there. And all the things that you can really just tick off fast, do it then, so that overall you have way less things to worry about in the totality of things.
Yeah, that's great. I love what you were saying also about it being competitive, and, you get in your head about that. I think a lot of students probably feel the same way. Law in its nature, studying law is very competitive. So on that note, what's some advice that you'd give to your first year self? Maybe to do with that, maybe to do with something completely different, but if you could talk to them right now, what would you tell them? Lihara, do you want to go first?
To my first year self in an academic sense and not comparing myself to other people, yeah, I just say that I'm on my own journey and everything I'm doing is my own unique path. So I'm not the same person as someone else. So if I choose to do something and they choose not to, that's not going to change their trajectory or mine. And I think it's very easy, especially with apps like LinkedIn, to very easily compare yourself to people who may be doing really well. And that does not mean that you are not. I would tell myself, my younger self, that what you're doing is enough and keep doing you because you'll get where you're supposed to go. And then on a personal note, my younger self in high school, I was a very shy person and I was also a very culturally insecure person. So coming into UNSW and seeing that diversity and being able to be myself was something that I really appreciated. So I went from being a student that genuinely, I said my last name shortened. I wouldn't say it correctly. I would be not happy eating ethnic food. I would also, I wouldn't be happy doing anything related to my culture because I just didn't want to embrace it. And I think being in UNSW and specifically LawSoc and UNSW Law really exposed me to so many different people that brought me out of that and made me a more secure person. So now I want to see younger students have that same journey. So I've had messages from very similar students to me being like, oh yeah, like you really helped change my experience. And I think that's the most rewarding part of this all. So if I could tell my younger self that, one day you're going to be making a very big difference for someone else and you are going to be a completely different and more confident person, that is probably what I'd say.
I'd say for me, one of the biggest pieces of advice that in my fourth year, would want to give to my first year self would be to essentially not think about every single thing that you're doing as the biggest thing that's going to happen in your life. In the sense, take perspective, think about the fact that whatever you're doing on that day, on that evening, on that night, whether that be working towards an assignment or submitting something to someone or doing your readings, take it into perspective and really think about the fact that at the end of 5 to 10 years, are you really going to look back at that moment in time and think, wow, that was a life-changing moment? Because realistically, it probably wasn't. And in the totality of things, a lot of the things that you may feel like are going to make the biggest impact in your life, things that you'll get really stressed about and be like, oh my God, I got a credit, or oh my God, I got a pass in this assignment, so my law degree is over. Be real about it. I think really try and take it into perspective that the things that you are doing today, yes, they're important. Yes, they are essential in shaping you essentially to follow whatever pathway you're going to end up on. But when you're going to look back at it in 10 years, it's really not going to matter that much. So enjoy it. Enjoy the entire experience. Enjoy the journey. And don't think about everything as the be-all or end-all of things. I think I got myself really down about those things. And I think that has a significant impact on, I know not just myself, but it has had an impact on many other people's mental health that I've been surrounded with. And being able to sort of take that perspective has been something that I'd say has helped me through the years. But I just hope that if there were any other first year students like me who are now obviously embarking on their journey, whether that be in first year or sort of, thinking about joining Law Society or whatever it is, really take it into perspective and think about, is this going to actually matter in the large scope of things?
I love the perspective that you guys have, that at the end of the day, we're all just on a floating rock, aren't we?
Not that nihilistic, but yeah, sure.
Do you know what I mean, though? I feel like it goes so quickly, law school. It feels slow in the moment, but it all goes so quickly.
Yeah, so. You have 5, maybe 6 to 7 years, and it will go so fast. So there's no time to waste on worrying about the little things when there's so many different opportunities that can come your way. So I just put your hand up and do it.
And go easy on yourself if it doesn't work out.
And if it doesn't work out, maybe it's not meant for you because something else is.
And that's not time that comes back. Now being in our fourth year, yes, I know I've said to myself so many times, like, God, get me out of this place. But at the end of the day, I know I'm going to miss this place when I get out of here. And now, obviously, having been in so many positions where I've had the opportunity to interact with so many professionals, whether that be, firm reps or whether that be lawyers outside of the community, like actually working on the ground, so many of them say, hey, I actually miss my uni days and I want to go back. And I'd say that's one thing that I know a lot of students have in their mind, that they want to come to university. They want to succeed academically because they think that's the only thing that will get them a really good job. While that may be the case in some ways, there's so many other ways to be able to get to exactly the same place that another person may be at, or like another lawyer may be at, if that is the profession that you want to go into, and not burn yourself out while getting in there just because you're so caught up in sort of getting good grades, going to university, only focusing on that, only focusing on a career, because you're going to be working for the rest of your life. We all have signed up to law knowing that most likely we're going to end up working for the rest of our lives. Whether that be working in an area that we're actually passionate about, or sort of just going to somewhere that we feel like we can achieve whatever goals we really want to achieve, that's going to be the rest of your life. University is not a time, undergraduate degree or any degree that you're studying at university is not a time that you're going to get back. So have fun with it. Don't forget to have fun with it, because I know so many people do forget to have fun with it, and then they look back and feel like they haven't had time to actually smell the flowers that they've been able to put out.
Awesome.
Yeah, definitely. So, life is short, uni is short. Enjoy it while it lasts.
This is so nihilistic, the entire podcast. Everything's like...
It's really wholesome though. Like
I literally get like teary thinking about like
yeah,
the
I know.
journey.
Honestly, when you guys were
had.
talking about your first year experiences, I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna cry.
No, literally.
Like, I don't know, I get so
I would
emotional about
never
that
have
stuff.
thought like in first year that I'd be here now. Like 100% no. And like the people that I've gotten along the way, oh my God, why am I teary?
Oh.
No, but like it's like insane. Like the people that you meet at UNSW Law are so fantastic. Like they really shape you, and I've genuinely made the most incredible friends here. So, oh my God.
Oh my God, now I'm gonna cry.
Why did this get deep?
That is so cute.
That's crazy.
Yeah, no,
cute.
people here have changed me like for the better, and I'm so grateful for it every day.
That is so cute though. I really respect that. I think it's really easy for us to be hard on ourselves, and it's nice to take a step back and, like you said, smell the flowers, appreciate everything that's happened so
and
far.
I think people get very caught up in the career aspect of law and the fact that, oh, I need to take this certain pathway and get into like a big corporate firm, for example, and oh, I need to be this certain director, do this certain position to get there. But there's so much more to it. Like law school makes you grow holistically, you grow academically, you grow personally, and you grow professionally. And I think that's something that's often forgotten. So
Yeah. And I think naturally, as a student who's stepped into this into this journey, you know that you've stepped out of your comfort zone, and automatically, I think this is one of my favorite quotes that one of my friends sort of told me, and I will carry it with me for the rest of my life. It was, the comfort zone is a really nice place, but nothing ever grows there. And I think I feel like that's been my entire journey at law school, and I'd say that's been our entire journey at law school, because we've sort of seen each other through so many bouts of it, and to now sit here 4 years down the track and to be able to reflect back onto it, I'd say the entirety of it has been shaped by the fact that we did things that weren't the conventional pathway, and that's how we've sort of got here. Yes, there's been a sort of, we've gone from director to VP to pres, but there's so much beyond that. And every other experience, like Lihara mentioned, that aspect of embracing our own cultural identity, that's something that's incredibly strong for both of us. And I think that's something that we both resonate with. I think that's one of the reasons we get along really well together as well, is having that strong sense of identity is something that shapes you, but ensuring that you're not being influenced by everyone around you, and you're choosing what you want to do and how you want your life to be shaped, because you're actually passionate about how you want to be when you come out and walk out of that law school degree.
because it's literally crazy. Like Bhavik and I, when we were like in first year, we were like, oh my God, like imagine if we were presidents. Like we genuinely had that conversation as first years, and then we never like spoke of it until like now.
No, this was like going back to Com 1117.
Wow.
And being like, wow, we both first met each other at law camp. We saw the activities OT at that time who organized law camp, Christina, go into the presidency role, and then being like, damn, we can imagine us being there in
and we
4
had that-
years' time.
It was crazy.
insane.
We had that conversation in 2021, never spoke of it again, and then 3 years down the track, it came to fruition.
So moving on, what are some of your personal favorite opportunities coming up this term and even later in the year that students can sign up for in LawSoc?
There's a lot of initiatives that LawSoc offers, so it is quite difficult to select a few. But to the top of my mind, we do have our women's negotiation competition, which invites our students to participate in a very fun negotiation.
Yeah, no, it's the women's negotiation is an incredible way, especially for our non-cis male students to be able to compete in a sort of non-confrontational setting and essentially improve their advocacy skills, but at the same time gives them so much exposure to be able to actually go meet firm representatives and talk to lawyers who are actually judging on panels. And that's your women's negotiation for you. Some of the other events that I know I'm really looking forward to, and I'm really sorry to my other cabinet members who I'm trying not to single you guys out, but the other events that I'm probably really looking forward to are things like the Human Rights Conference. I know that was an incredible event that we ran last year, and we're sort of really planning on increasing the scale of that this year. So really excited to see that.
Another one of our personal favorites is definitely the Careers in Criminal Law Networking Night. So we actually work with the Criminology Society on that event, and it really exposes students to the public law sector, which I think is a very underappreciated or under-recognized part of a law degree. And a law degree definitely offers very different career pathways, so you don't need to often take the one which is typical of law students. It's a great way to meet professionals in the criminal space and criminal justice space. That's definitely an event that we would recommend. Another event, a social one and very highly anticipated, is our law ball. So we actually have one for all of our students, and then we also have one which is catered for JD, PG and international students. Both very fantastic events which invite all of our students to come together and really celebrate their year. So we'd highly recommend that one as well.
Yeah, I'd say one of the other personal favorites is the evening with a justice. Last year, it actually was converted into an evening with the judiciary where we had 4 judges. One of them was from the New South Wales Court of Appeal, and then 3 judges who currently sit on the High Court, which is a pretty incredible achievement. I think for me, that was an event which really contextualized the impact and the scale of law society in general, and sort of how wide-reaching we are, because people who are literal celebrities to us law students can come and just have the opportunity to talk to us. And so evening with the judiciary is probably one of my highlights as well to look forward to in the year.
Yeah, and for our penultimate or graduate students who are looking to explore different career opportunities, we also have our clerkship cocktail evening happening in term 2, which invites many firms across Sydney, some being international firms as well, to network with you. And you get to make many connections and really seek out which firm meets the trajectory you want to take and the visions you have for the impact you want to make as well.
Perfect. Okay, to finish off with, what is your vision for the year?
So studying in law is definitely very challenging alongside your work commitments and other external commitments you might have. So a very large goal that we do want to prioritize is the well-being and mental health awareness of our students. So we want to make sure we have those opportunities to provide that unwavering support to all of our students, regardless of what part of their degree they're at, whether they're a first year student or a final year student or a JD, PG international student. We want to make sure that your well-being is prioritized throughout your entire academic journey with UNSW Law.
And the way we sort of want to be able to achieve that this year is not only through bigger well-being initiatives, but also by increasing the scale of our peer mentoring as well as professional mentoring initiatives. So we have so many opportunities for students to be able to really take on board and grasps that will allow them to have that personal connection with other people so that they can feel supported through their law school journey and hopefully beyond as well.
That about wraps it up for today. Thank you so much to both Lihara and Bhavik for their time. And this was the Insights Podcast. We'll hope to hear from you next time.